No. The line is I blew up my flip flop, stepped on a pop top. How the hell are you gonna blow out a flip flop stepping on a pop tart? You're an idiot. I gotta go anyway. I got a guy here. He's here to fix the radiator again. All right, yeah, yeah. Stop calling me with these stupid questions about lyrics. You know who didn't? Yeah, I'm not. I don't want to do cheeseburger in paradise next. I gotta go. I know a lot of weird people. Welcome to Talk About the Passion, the podcast. We're moving along into the years here. We're in 1976 now. We got a lot to fucking cover here tonight. Do you remember 1976? Were you alive? I was 6 years old. This was the year. Do you remember they had those quarters, the Spirit of '76 ones that had the little George Washington, but they had the Kiss poster with them up in the some building in New York, probably. Um, and then my family we moved to Los Angeles in 1976. Um, on the heels of Frampton Comes Alive, which I believe was released in January of that year. And of course, my dad worked for A&M, and I don't think I've ever confirmed this with him, but I imagine because of the success of that record, that afforded us the ability to move to Los Angeles, as he had a big hand in promoting and marketing that very famous Frampton Live record. And there was a lot of live records came out in 1976, and I was almost thinking of doing a completely separate one because I was going to try to not talk about live records on these for just whatever stupid rule I have here. But yeah, so we're not going to talk about live records here. Um, but this was, yeah. So when he worked at A&M, this was at the famous office in that I talked about last time we went there. The Tubes were there. We were there once and met the Cramps, Captain and Tennille. We saw Piper there, which was Billy Squire's first band. They put a record out on A&M Record. It's actually a pretty on A&M Records. That's a pretty good record. But we used to go there a lot, and that place on La Brea Ave was originally Charlie Chaplin's movie studio, and then I think after A&M it became Jim Henson's studio, which I think it might still be. I don't really know. The last time I drove by there, I think they still had the Kermit the Frog over the front gate there, but I don't know. So 1976. I of course wasn't listening to these records I've been talking about in these years that we've been talking about. I wasn't listening to the fucking Stooges when I was two, or Frank Zappa when I was, in 1974. I wasn't like, you know, oh, this is great stuff. Because I was listening to fucking Sesame Street records or whatever shit that we used to have around the house. The Big Blue Marble, the Zoom TV show record. I have both of those over there. In the Night Kitchen, it was at Carole King. A lot of that kind of shit. Paul Simon, but I don't really remember it. My first concert was Cat Stevens, around probably right before we moved. I think I was 5 or 6, and it was the Magica tour. We're not going to talk about that. Um, but the point I'm trying to make is 1976 is the first year where I actually remember hearing music for the first. Like, I have memories of these records that I listened to in 1976. Not all these ones we're going to talk about, but two particularly, and that's Kiss Destroyer and Kiss Rock and Roll Over. Um, but we're not going to talk about those yet. And my initial plan with this whole thing was to talk about records that sort of formed like who, like what, I don't know, like my personality, but just what I kind of listened to the most throughout my life. But I kind of got out of hand because, like Budgie, I love them, but those weren't like records I kind of got into those later. So I'm trying to tone it down a little and just talk about the ones that were really important. But I also have stuff here where I'm just like, I gotta There's some of these where you're gonna like, what, why you get that one? Um, but before we actually start, I just want to say I had my sixth of six chemotherapy sessions yesterday, and I'm feeling positive and good right now. Of course, with this kind of thing, the severity of the cancer I have, which, if you don't know, is stage 4 metastatic prostate cancer. Um, all bets are off. So, but we're keeping a positive attitude over here, and I'm in great care, and my numbers have looked good so far. So, yeah, that's what's happening. Um, okay, so where are we going to start in 1976? Because there's a lot of stuff here, and there's a lot of amazing records that came out, and we're not even going to get to all of them. We're going to kind of fly through some of them at the end. But we're going to start with this. The last time I made one of these videos, I'm like holding the fucking record. So this is the debut album by the band Boston, who are from Massachusetts. And so let's talk about this record. We'll put it back down here now for now. Um, where I grew up, the name of this album is Boston. You know how they would do that back in the day? I have all sorts of drinks here tonight, by the way. It's 2:14 a.m. and I'm recording this right now. I have to get up at 6:30. But we have this Cape Cod dry cranberry soda. We got coffee that I made at 6:30 tonight that I rewarmed up in the microwave. That's pretty disgusting. And we have water. We don't want any kind of like the Wolfman Jack to show up. So where I grew up in Swampscott, Massachusetts, um, we had a few members of the band Boston in my town. Most notably, bass player Fran Sheehan, drummer Sib Hashin, The Rock's father-in-law, if you didn't know that, and guitarist Barry Goudreau, the guy that wasn't Tom Scholz that played guitar. I think he lives there now. I don't know if he lived there in the period we're going to talk about here, which was around 1982 and 1983. Next door to Swampscott Junior High, which is where I went to junior high school, around this time, there was allegedly a member of the Joe Perry Project who lived next door to the junior high. And I like those, the Joe Perry Project. And they were arguably doing some better things than Aerosmith was doing when Joe left the band briefly after he was just kind of disillusioned with how long it took to put a Night in the Ruts together. So he did this, and yeah, pretty good records. And this past weekend, I was with my friend Steve, and we went to a record store over in Bellingham, Mass, called Crystal Ball Records, which is a really cool little store. It's been there for a few years now, owned by a young woman who used to work at a store called um, the Never Mind shop over in Upton. But she's got a great little shop over in Bellingham, Mass. Crystal Ball Records. So I was in there over the weekend with my friend Steve. We had a nice lunch. After that, we went in here, and I had a Joe Perry Project album in my little stack I was carrying around for about 15 minutes before I put it back. I was like, you don't need this. So I went with a red vinyl reissue of Use of Today's Break Down the Walls. That was from like 2019 or something. I think it was a record store day thing, maybe. I don't know. Or just one of those Revelation just reissue. But I didn't have a copy of that record, and I love that record. And I was at that show. It's on the front picture of that. So I honestly don't think that was a member of the Joe Perry Project that lived next door to the junior high school. I think it was probably Fran Sheehan from Boston. But you would often hear bands rehearsing over there, or a band rehearsing over there. And around the 4th of July every year in Swampscott, they would have fireworks on the beach on the 3rd or 4th. And on the 2nd, at the football field where the Swampscott Big Blue high school team played. Um, they would have a ground display fireworks thing, but it was like an all day thing, and in the daytime they would have music, and there was a thing called at this time called the Fran Sheehan All Stars, because as you know, Boston put out that first record that we're talking about here. We're really getting into this record a lot here, if you can tell. The first Boston record debut. It's called Boston. Um, excuse me. But what was the point I was trying to make there? Yeah, at this time, Boston, didn't put another record out until Third Stage, which I think was '86. Um, and I don't even know who was it. I don't even know if Fran Sheehan was on that one. I don't remember. Oh no, what am I? They put out Don't Look Back. I'm an idiot. I got that one here. We'll get into that one as soon as we really get this deep dive into this one that we have going right here done. So they would put. He had this thing called the Fran Sheehan All Stars or something, which I think was him and Sib from Boston, and maybe like Charlie Farron, who was the singer on that second Joe Perry Project album. It's a good record. And then he had a band called Fahrenheit. If Farron, get it? But he was like a Boston guy people liked. There's a lot of these like the Stompers, the Neighborhood. I mean, they're not different genres really, but those rock guys from Boston. There's a lot of them. Del Fuegos. Um, but anyway, these bands would play stuff like Mustang Sally and Johnny Be Good, or Hang On Sloopy, that kind of stuff. So I don't know if you know this about me, but I was one of those kids, those teenagers that walked around town with a boombox. Remember those kids? Yeah, I was one of those kids. So I apologize for that because the only person that really should be able to do that was Radio Raheem and Do the Right Thing. Um, but when I thought about this story, this isn't really a story. We're doing a deep dive on the Boston album here. Um, I remember it was like a key memory unlocked. Like, oh yeah, there was two other dudes in Swampscott that walked around with boomboxes. One of them did this. I didn't do that. I just carried it around. I wasn't doing this. But this one kid, his name is Mike something. But he was like if there was if for some reason there needed to be a biopic about this guy Mike, who I don't think that would be a thing that would ever happen for any reason. But Philip Seymour Hoffman would probably play him, and he would like walk by. You would see him like in the middle of the night, like at 11:30 at night. He'd be skateboarding down Forest Ave in Swampscott, and this kid would be blasting Triumph or like fucking Cygnus X1 by Rush or something. Or I remember hearing him play King like later playing like Kingdom Come. Like who had that on tape? I thought I might have. Maybe what am I thinking of something? Or maybe White's. I don't know. A lot of deep cut. There's no white. I don't know. But I remember hearing Cygnus X1 particularly, and a lot of Triumph. So maybe it was just a Canadian rock guy. I don't know. And then there was another guy named Dennis, I think, and he was the one where we were at a park once, and he showed up playing what I knew was Judas Priest. It was this metal, but for years I didn't know what the song was. And then it turned out to be Victim of Changes from the live record. One of the best fucking Judas Priest songs out there. Whiskey, yeah, that's a good song. Was the Whiskey Woman really driving Rob Halford insane? You know what I'm talking about? So I was one of so I remember I would play punk rock or whatever. I remember being at the a bus stop at like 7:03 in the fucking morning, and I had a boom bar. I didn't have a boom. I had one of those like thin ones. You know those ones. If I find one, I'll put it up on the thing. There's no way I'm editing this video tonight. We're still on the first album, and but I remember blasting Bauhaus Double Dare at this bus stop, and some girl told me to turn it off. So of course I turned it up, you know. I dare you. It has that boom boom. It's had all those weird like noises when it fades in at the beginning, and then yeah, Peter Murphy. And I'm thinking in my head, yeah, Peter Murphy. I dare her to tell me to turn this fucking goth shit down in the middle of fucking June. It's 7:02 in the morning on a fucking Tuesday. So at one of these fireworks displays, um, I had the boombox with me because when they did the fireworks, they weren't playing me. It wasn't like in Boston with the Boston Pops. It was just this stupid fucking thing with like pinwheels and or whatever the fuck they were doing. But I had remember last time I said I had props. I forgot to show I had this. On your feet or on your knees pin. I forgot to use this in the last one. So here it is. When I said I had props over here and then I never went back. If you remember that video, which I don't know how many people watched that whole hour and 15 minutes. Near the end, I talked about how I had props. Anyway, so I had this little boom box and I was playing. I wasn't blasting it. I was like sitting in the, with like 3 or 4 of my friends. These were the guys that were into like Rush and Iron Maiden and shit. And I was playing on Salem State Radio. There was a radio station, 91.7 WMWM, which is where I would DJ when I went to college there. And but there was a North Shore guy named Chris Corkum who was a friend. He was in this ran with the circles of Mike Gitter and Al Quint and those older, a few years older than me, from Swampscott. But Chris was from Marblehead. He sadly passed away a few years ago. There's some great pictures. There's a picture of him like at a Misfits show, like right up front with Glenn Danzig, like yeah. He's one of those guys. There's him and that guy Mark Tobio, who also sadly passed away. He's in a lot of these like Zelig. There's like there's that picture of Al Quint and Mark Tobio and Ian MacKay on stage at the channel. So yeah, but he had a radio show, and I was sitting and listening to it, and he would play stuff like Crucifix and the Misfits, Gangrene, Minor Threat, and I immediately was like I want this in my life. And I remember my friends that were with me, like if you like this shit, or whatever you should meet this kid Peter at the high school. He's a couple years older than us. He sells joints, but he's into this stuff. So I eventually met Peter, and it's Peter Biebergall, who I've talked about on this many times. Dear friend for many years. But he introduced me to all this stuff. And from then on, I was sold on punk and hardcore. And so what does any of this have to do with the first Boston album? Aside from Fran Sheehan playing these fucking Mustang Sally concerts and me fucking playing Crucifix on a little boombox on the grass where the Big Blue Powder Puff team would battle against the Marblehead Magicians on the day before Thanksgiving, whenever they would do those. I don't know, but at one point, one night I was sitting around here, and I'm a fan of like mash-up tattoos or just kind of like funny tattoos or whatever. So I had this idea one night where I wanted to incorporate the spaceship that's on the cover of the first Boston album called Boston. And it would be floating above the Massachusetts State House with some people running up the stairs, like the kids will have their say, SSD control. And oh yeah, instead of the blue smoke coming out of the spaceship, it would have the yellow Bad Brains lightning striking the State House. And then under that, it would say, Mass is the rippinest town. So it would say, Boston, Mass is the rippinest town, which is the line from the Slapshot chant thing. Boston, Mass is the rippinest town. Don't smoke, don't drink, don't fuck around. How's this mic? I haven't banged any records on it yet, but because we're only on the first one here. So yeah, and so of course I drew this thing up, and I sent it to my friend Michael Brousseau, tattoo artist, a very good friend of mine. and he did the he's done um, he did a Black Flag tattoo on me. That's from a fucking Raymond Pettibone, one of those flyers. He did a Slint piece on me. So of course I went to him, and he also is a fan of doing these kind of tattoos. He did. I don't know if you've ever seen this tattoo. It was kind of out there for a while. And it was it's on our good other dear friend Liam Gray's body, and it's that minor threat guilty of being delicious hot dog tattoo. Yeah, so Michael did that tattoo, and but yeah, so this tattoo on my leg now lives here forever, and it has incorporates all of well, not just a lot of my favorite music. Um, and yeah, and when I posted this on social media at the time, Choke saw it and he said something like, "Oh, this is really cool." So that was worth the whole thing. I don't know if Fran Sheehan has ever seen this tattoo or Tom Scholes, but if I find out, I'll let you know. Anyway, first Boston album, perfect album, not a bad song on it. Speaking of Boston, one of the other bigger rock bands from Boston, which included Joe Perry, who we were just talking about, is Aerosmith Rocks, the fourth Aerosmith album. Um, and a lot of people, including myself, can think about this as one of their best records. I kind of go between this and Draw the Line. Um, but any the first four or five, I guess, five maybe, yeah. Does Draw the Line come after this or yeah, I don't know. Toys Get Your Wings. I don't love the first one. Sorry. Um, I like it, but I really think they came into the with Get Your Wings and Rocks and Toys in the Attic and then Draw the Line. And, Summer of Magna Ruts is pretty good. And I even like, when we were talking about Joe Perry when he left the band, I kind of like some of that one they did with him. And then Mirrors was good. So it was pretty good. Um, anyway, this record, includes, the hits, the big hits like Last Child and, of course, Back in the Saddle. I have the playlist here, so I'm just kind of looking through it. Even though I have the album here, it's kind of like my eyes are fucking not great. But yeah, Back in the Saddle, Last Child, um, Sick as a Dog. But the real heads know that the best songs on this are Combination and Get the Let Out. Combination is, a song about their drug use, which has Joe Perry sharing vocal duties with Steven Tyler. And it's just one of their best songs. This is a fucking awesome song. Great guitar playing in this one. And then Get the Let Out is, it's just a straightforward boogie rock song. But it's like Joey Kramer shines on this record, on this song. I mean, he's just like an underrated rock drummer, but he like I don't know this. I just love that song. It's not like anything special, um, under 4 minutes, and but yeah, A Lick and a Promise. That's a good one. Rats in the Cellar, but yeah, this is an essential Aerosmith record. And speaking of Joey Kramer, right down the street here in Attleboro, Mass. There was Joey Kramer had a chain of coffee shops at one point. I know, which walking into that fucking place was like walking into like Guy Fieri's fucking soul. Because those two guys are kind of interchangeable guys. Um, I used to say I bet Joey Kramer has like a pedal that sprays Axe body spray on him in the middle of shows. But wasn't he like not asked to be back in the band? Anyway, not the best coffee in that place, and it was more of like an ironic novelty to go into that place because it was fun and everything. But then you leave there and you're like, I just spent $17 on this fucking busting ass latte and a scone, so I could see like a fucking bedazzled drum set behind glass in here, and all sorts of. This is like, Joey Kramer. You can tell what that would probably be like. Um, so I would like to formally introduce to the podcast. This isn't really a podcast; it's a fucking video. I'm sorry, I'm swearing again. But we're going to introduce these guys to the podcast now. AC/DC. So these two records come out in 1976. This one, like, internationally, and I think this one just in Australia. But both of these include stuff from their first two Australian ones, which were High Voltage, which had a different cover than that. It had like and then TNT. Both of these records have songs from both of those, I think. And of course, there's two schools of AC/DC fans, which are people who think the Bon Scott stuff is the best. I tend to lean that way, maybe more because there's more the quality versus quantity is much tighter with the Bon Scott stuff. Like, there's not many misses on any of these Bon Scott records. I mean, very few. I mean, if any, really, when you think about it. But the lyrics are juvenile on a lot of the stuff, but they had more of like a sense of humor when Bon Scott was. I mean, they still did, with Brian Johnson and a lot of that stuff. But I think like the sexual innuendos were always more innuendos and more metaphorical and just funny on here. Like Big Balls. Um, but when fucking Robert Johnson, when Robert Johnson joined AC/DC, Brian Johnson, when he joined, um, there was no when Brian Johnson came along. No, oh wait, sorry. Let's word that again. When Johnson came along, no pun intended, there was no metaphors when he was singing "Let me put my love into you." When he meant his love, I think he meant, what he meant, right? Yeah, you know. You're disgusting. So yeah, these two records, and like a lot of the bands I've talked about on here, I discovered them when Back in Black came out, and I knew like the song Highway to Hell, but I had, and I think I got it because of the cover was so intense, was the live record, which I have over there. But we're not doing live records here. If you want blood, you've got it. Which is where I heard a lot of these songs on here, like Problem Child is on there. Um, Rocker, yeah, that's on there. The Jack, of course, and High Voltage. And then Livewire opens that. I don't know if you've ever heard that Atlantic Studios live set, which is what was on their box set, and that one opens with Livewire, and that's a great little live set. But yeah, at some point we're gonna hit everyone. We're gonna hit a lot of AC/DC records, but these two are awesome. One of my favorite bands. And they didn't invent rock and roll, of course, but they definitely like just injected this fucking dirty, just powerful, power fucking rock, high voltage rock. Um, with one of the best rhythm sections and rhythm guitar players um, in the fucking business. Um, so yeah, we got a lot of fun stuff to cover here, and by fun stuff I mean Kiss. We were just talking about them a little while ago, remember? Just for like a second, and you knew it was. You knew this was going to happen, but like I said, we don't go too far into the Kiss world. We're going to, we're probably going to go up to like Unmasked. Um, I didn't love. I've gotten more into the non-makeup stuff, but I like Unmasked a lot, and I like Dynasty. The Elder. I think I'm gonna try to. research that one because that's another one people love that one, and it's just never clicked with me. So I'm gonna have to listen to that. But the reason I really want to talk about this and Destroyer, which for some reason I don't have, there's another like one of those like you're a Kiss fan, you don't have that record. But so these two records were ones I remember listening to as a child. Um, my brother had a Destroyer before we moved to California in '76. We moved out there in like the summer or the fall or something. And that one the ending of Detroit Rock City with the car crash used to scare me. Um, but that segue into King of the Nighttime World, which is one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite Paul Stanley songs because it's not too like Destroyer doesn't get too sketchy and creepy. It's not till we get to this one, which we'll talk about in a minute, where every single song on this record is literally like, "You're gonna fucking let me get you, lady." But Destroyer is more, that record. I always say the cover of that record, makes you think they're like a metal band because of that picture, and it is a little more like, I mean, not heavy, but it's not heavier than the stuff on like Hotter Than Hell or even Love Gun, really. Well, I don't know what I'm talking about, but yeah. So Kiss, Destroyer. The other song on here, oh yeah, God of Thunder scared me, and that was mainly because there was that kid like, yeah, doing that whole thing. It was kind of scary when you're 6 or 7 listening to this shit. Um, but when we moved to California, this was the first one I got. Like for my that was my own copy. This isn't it. I got this whenever at some point. But this one, another one right off the bat. Paul Stanley's basically telling this woman there's literally nothing she can do to get away with his wants and needs. To the point where he says, you can lie and deny, but you're gonna pay with like bad sex or death. Like what is he threatening this woman? But yeah, like every song on this record is essentially calling Doctor Love. Gene Simmons wants to hook up with women in the ladies' room, which is kind of disgusting. Because you imagine these guys are in a lot of arenas and like those bathrooms are kind of gross. So I don't know why you would want to meet them in the ladies' room, especially when you get like a bus or the hotel or whatever. Love them and leave them, Mr. Speed, but making love all night long. Paul Stanley, that guy just loves having sex. Who doesn't? But Paul Stanley, though, he will let you know you're not getting away with not having sex with me tonight. But one of the best songs on here though is Peter Criss' sung "Hard Luck Woman," which is this is one of their best songs. Yeah, that's a good song. Peter Criss has a great voice. Um, Another one that we had around the house, and when I was younger, the second Tubes album. We talked about their first one on the last record, in the last episode. Um, I just got this recently. I ordered this from Discogs for like $6 a couple weeks ago. And you can get all these Tubes records for cheap. How's that fucking noise against the mic? You like that? It's late. It's almost 3. But yeah. So this record, um, there's only really one big song on here that "Don't Touch Me" there, which was kind of like a minor hit. But the first song on here, Tubes World Tour, I think this record is a little more focused than their first record. I think this is where they really come into their, they didn't really have like a extensive career where they kind of move styles around a lot, but I think they always maintain this sort of arty rock with, just an interesting way to write songs and just create this whole weird world of their own with this twisted sense of humor, with a lot of like innuendo, of course, and then not so, "Don't touch me" there. There's not much innuendo there. Um, but Brighter Day, Slip My Disco, those are really good songs on here. And again, Young and Rich, um, another one, like just one of the, like a solid record from, I think an underrated band. And if you only know the 80s stuff from these guys, I'd recommend getting these first two or three records. The next one I think is Now, which has a they cover Captain Beefheart's. Don Van Vliet is on that record as well, the third one. But they cover My Head Is My Only House Unless It Rains, whatever that one's called. Let's have some water. We're getting a little hoarse, and we still got 43 albums to get through here. And I got to get up to go to work in like 2 hours. We'll get through this together. Don't we worry. Because you know what time it is? It's time for friggin' Black Sabbath. Um, and we're getting down to the, well, I mean, this is, a lot of people say this record is the beginning of the end, which is, I mean, it really is, because it's, Ozzy is on this, and then I love these. This is a reissue. I always love these. And this album cover is intense. Um, but this is a reissue, and I'll get to what I was going to say in a minute. Don't worry. I just wanted to show off. But this is a white copy. I like white vinyl records. Did you see that? I thought it was gray. That's just my hair. Well, I don't have any hair right now because of this chemotherapy bullshit. But it's not bullshit. Bullshit. It's helping you. Is it? Um, we'll get this back in there, or we'll just put it down on the floor. Technical Ecstasy. Um, a lot of people despise this record, and I was never really a big fan of it. And when it really clicked for me was when I bought the deluxe edition box set, and there is a new mix of it. I like this cover with like the different color styles, and I think it's probably Steven Wilson, maybe I think that did this. But and you can I don't think this is on streaming, but you can find all these songs on YouTube. Someone, excuse me, we get these drinks, but someone uploaded this record on this mix onto YouTube, and you can listen to the whole thing there. And it definitely just gives the album like a different feel. And of course, yeah, I'm the type of person that bought a fucking deluxe box set of an album I didn't like, because that's the kind of person I am. But this album has some great songs. All Moving Parts, Stand Still, the opener, Backstreet Kids is great, and then It's All Right, sung by Bill Ward, which my friend Daniel Brockman used to say sounded like an Oasis song, I mean, it does. It sounds like an Oasis song, but I mean, we know that all these guys, at least Ozzy, which, I mean, he's not on this song, love the Beatles, and it was only a matter of time where a Beatles influenced song would end up on a Black Sabbath album. Maybe I'm forgetting something on one of the albums from before this, but I don't think there was anything really like this style of sort of like the later era Beatles. But that's what that It's All Right. It sounds like Oasis, who sound like the Beatles. So that's where we're at with that. And Gypsy and Dirty Women are good ones. And yeah, Technical Ecstasy, I came around to it. And we're gonna get into Never Say Die after this, which was also a good Ozzy record, and that was the last one. Because it's got Junior's Eyes on it and Johnny Blade, but we're not talking about that yet. We're gonna get there later. Blue Oyster Cult Agent, we've been talking about them quite a bit here, and they get a few more in the next few years. But Agents of Fortune comes out in 1976. I'm trying to make sure I really get these on here this time, because last time like I said, I'm like, here's a record. But then I also demonstrated that thing where I can be like, I get that thing out of my nose and I can hide behind this. But yeah, so Agents of Fortune. This is the one that has "Don't Fear the Reaper" on it, their biggest song. Um, I went to see them a few years. I don't know if I probably I'm old and I tell this. I'm one of those guys now who just tells the same friggin' stories over and over. We're getting down here. Only a couple more here, but then we get the list on the TV here. Um, we're still talking about this. Keep that up here. But I went to see them a while back with Deep Purple in Boston, and my buddy and I wanted to go really to see BOC. And he's an okay Deep Purple fan, but I wasn't sure I was wanted to see them with Steve Morse on guitar, not the Boston Globe writer, the guitar player from the Dregs, Dixie Dregs. Um, yeah, don't follow up the cranberry juice soda with the coffee from 6:30 p.m. Is that 10 hours ago? 6:30. It's 2:48 right now. Yeah, it was a long time ago. That's all right. I'm one of those people who'll nurse a coffee for a day. Sue me. It's not dairy in there. So what are we talking about here? Blue Oyster Cult. Yeah. So we went to see them, and when they did, "Don't Fear the Reaper," they were like, "Who wants to hear some cowbell?" And then they had the cowbell like turned way up in the mid, and I was like, you know what? What are you guys doing? I know it was a funny skit or whatever, but like, can you fucking play fucking Emmy? No, I think they did play Emmy 262 at this show, maybe, or play fucking Screams. They did the last days of May. Was that the name of the song? Um, anyway, Deep Purple fucking blew them off the stage without Richie Blackmore. But this is, like all BOC records, I think the real stuff, the good stuff on these records is the deep cuts. Like "Tattoo Vampire," which is a really heavy song. The Revenge of Vera Gemini, and "Morning Final." But this also has one of my favorite songs, "ETI," Extraterrestrial Intelligence. Um, Dead Leaves Always Give Up Motion. I Can Barely Feel Emotion. This is a great song. But there's another one, Essential, BOC record, another high point in their fucking discography. Um, I love this record, and you should too. It's essential. That's it. Okay? Sorry about the squeaking chair. What else we got? Rush 2112. This is when we got these outfits. This was one of those ones that we would go to my friend Dave Simon's house. We would listen to Frank Zappa and Pink Floyd and drink his parents' alcohol and smoke weed. We were like 13, but we were like really getting into the concept of the story behind 2112, which was awesome. And like, I think when you're that age, listening to stuff that has lyrics that you can like dissect and sort of get into. Um, was important, especially for kids like us. We were all into fantasy and sci-fi and stuff like that. And this is often people's favorite Rush album. For and for a good reason. It's a fucking There's no real bad songs on this one. I used to think maybe the Twilight Zone was, but the music in that, the lyrics in that one are kind of corny, but the music in that song is great. That's one of my favorite songs. And the Passage to Bangkok is on here. What else? Oh, I just well, I have the album here, but like as you'll see, even though I have the bag on here, I mean, the it's like red on black. I can't read that, but the last song on here is one of my favorite songs by them, "Something for Nothing," which has some kind of cringy lyrics. But the Alex's guitar playing on that, it keeps clicking over there. Um, is that the witch have dentures? Oh, you okay. Um, the guitar playing on "Something for Nothing" is great. Um, Much needed record for your Rush collection. Well, we're going to take a little quick stop here on a place that you might not even be familiar with. Or you may have seen this record around or heard of this band and been like, I am not going to fucking listen to that stupid thing. And it's this record by a band called Stars with a Z. I mean, what do you think you're getting there, right, buddy? Look at the back of this. Look at those guys, right? So these guys, where are they from? I don't know. The United States somewhere. Yeah, and look at the inside of this. Oh, that's racy, not racist. What's wrong with being racy? And then it just has the lyrics to one song on here. She's Just a Fallen Angel, which I guess was their big hit. But this is a cool record. This is if you're into like arena rock, 70s arena rock, like Kiss and Aerosmith, who they got lumped into with. This is a good record for that. Just like fun, just fun rock stuff. And just pretty, typical safe um, lyrics. And this guy's mustache, right? Um, but then the last song, is it the last song on here? No, it's in the middle of the second side. Pull the Plug, the song about like it's this like slow bluesy number. I'm one of those people that starts calling songs number. The slow bluesy number called Pull the Plug. But it's literally about a guy like pulling the plug on his wife. This is also embossed. That's not just written on there, like the credit card on that Tubes album. Um, this is literally about a guy pulling the plug on his wife's life support. Um, but this is just an awesome rock record, and there's a great book out called They Just Seem a Little Weird. It's about Kiss, Cheap Trick, Aerosmith, and Stars, and just sort of the world of the rock that they sort of the world that they lived in. And it's a book that introduced me to Stars because I didn't really know anything about them, and so I got that record, and I listened to the next couple, which there was one of these bands that I don't know how many albums they put out, but I think they just kind of got like more like I never really went past this one, and I didn't feel like I needed to. So to go into a complete opposite world of this, um, one of the main things that we're, trying to talk about on here is like connecting like punk rock and all that kind of stuff to this. And I know we talked about some of the early stuff like the Stooges and the MC5, of course, but where a lot of the stuff that I love starts is right here with this record, which I don't have a copy of because I'm a fucking loser. Is the debut album by the Ramones, which like that's a perfect record. It's one of the best records of all time by like anyone, not necessarily just punk rock. And these guys come out and it's like this mix of like Eddie Cochran and the Beach Boys, and with this buzzsaw guitar and just like weird and funny bizarre lyrics by which kids teenagers connected to because it was just silly, like beat on the brat with a baseball bat. But then, like Blitzkrieg Bop, where he's just, talking about bombing. Judy is a Punk is on here. Now I Want to Sniff Some Glue. When you were a kid into like comics and sci-fi and stuff and just like weird shit, you connected to these guys, especially Joey Ramone. And we're, of course, going to talk about all, this is another one that's, this is the first record on this show, and we're going to talk about all their records. Well, not all of them, but I mean, I go pretty far into their discography. I think they were still putting out good stuff like into the 80s. Um, so yeah, one of my favorite bands of all time. Just like a lot of us people, punk rockers, just regular fucking people. If you don't like the Ramones, I don't think you probably don't have that much light in your heart. Ease up, lighten up. Throw a fucking Ramones album on. Two fucking Fleet Foxes albums away for the fucking year. All right, your fucking Iron and Wine. I like that. When we get into like the 2000s, where I have no fucking idea. I have no idea what I'm gonna do when I get to like 2018. What came out in 2018? I don't. I don't know. But for now, we're gonna be surfing along for a while here with stuff I love. Um, Another one from New York City in the same sort of, well, the same vein of this, in the same circle of people. Blondie puts out their debut album, and I wasn't familiar with this one until way later. I was more into, I had like the best of Blondie, and I had Eat to the Beat, which I loved, and Parallel Lines, and but this one has Ripper to Shreds, In the Flesh, and what else is on here? Oh, Ex Offender, the first song on there. Those are all pretty big songs. Um, but they were great. They were like punk rock, new wave, but they had like a foot sort of planted in the 50s and 60s. Like I can picture, Debbie Harry doing a record with, the Wrecking Crew backing her, not the Boston hardcore band. That would be kind of fun too. But yeah, this record is great all the way through. What do you expect with Blondie? Um, so yeah, I didn't write. I didn't. This thing is empty now. I have notes on all these records, um, but it was getting late as I was putting this thing together. So, but we're just gonna. What was that? So we're gonna breeze through these last few. Led Zeppelin Presence, another one of these ones I didn't get into later. Um, my friend Steve has one of these objects that every once in a while he brings out and about, and we do stuff with that. We take pictures with it. But I like Presence. Was another one I just didn't get into. But I mean, Achilles' Last Stand, Nobody's Fault But Mine, perfect songs. I know a lot of people, this is their favorite Led Zeppelin album, and it's fucking awesome. I mean, there's no real bad Led Zeppelin albums, like just out of the catalog, I think. Coda, that compilation, whatever. I don't really need that record. So, yeah, Led Zeppelin, Presence, get it. We've been talking about Parliament and Funkadelic alone on here lately, haven't we? This is the first Parliament album I heard. I think my brother had this, or maybe he inherited it from my dad. Um, but I loved this one mainly for the song Doctor Funkenstein, because it had the whole, hip bone connect to the thigh bone connect to the leg bone connect to the ankle bone. And then I'm sorry for that impression of whoever that is singing that part. I get so hung up on bones. But then, that's a fun song when you're, 13 or whatever, when you first hear it. But this also, then when you later get into this record, and when I really got into this band, this has Gaming on You, Children of Production, which is awesome. Do that stuff. I mean, this is a great record. Um, you know, Parliament and Funkadelic had a fucking run of amazing music in the 70s, and Funkadelic also put out Tales of Kid Funkadelic, which has Butt to Butt Resuscitation, um, which is pretty funny name for a song. Makes me think of that movie with Jared Leto, Hubert Selby book. You know what I'm talking about? Butt to Butt Resuscitation. Sort of near the end of that movie, Requiem for a Dream. We're getting a little. We're gonna get. This channel's gonna get banned if we keep. We gotta get out of these Kiss albums and funk. Some of these guys get a little racy. But yeah, we'll get into the better, the nicer, more just real, the more intelligent stuff. But until then, take your dead ass home, Funkadelic on Disco Kid. Um, I'm doing these and I keep losing records. I have Frank Zappa Zoodalures. I swear to God, but it's not here. I don't know where it is. The Zappa albums over there are in between the Zodiac Mind Warp and Y&T or so. I don't even know. But this is one of his best records. Black Napkins is on here. Wind Up Working at a Gas Station, which is an awesome song. Zoodalures. Did this come out in 1976? Maybe I did it last week. I don't even know. And then we're going to keep going down into the Z's. Because Frank Zappa, ZZ Top, puts out Tejas. Is that how you say that? I love this record. And this is another one of these, like, for some reason I thought I wasn't really into this record. And while, like I've said before, while researching these episodes, I will list, I have this playlist here, which has fucking 28 albums on it, or whatever it is. But I was listening to the ZZ Top record driving out to New York a few weeks ago. And the song $10 Man came on. And I was like, this is a fucking ZZ Top song. And then, so a lot of times what I'll do is these are all on shuffle. And then when it hits a song, and I'm like, oh, I want to listen to that album. I put this whole album on and I listened to it twice in a row. It was that good. So, yeah, I enjoy this record quite a bit. What else we got in 1976? What time is it? Where the hell am I? Whose wine? What wine? Where the hell did I dine? Like that callback to Frampton Comes Alive. Is anyone even here anymore? Songs in the Key of Life by Stevie Wonder comes out. Imagine not having that album. I don't have that fucking album. I thought I did. Maybe it's in the closet. Sir Duke, Have a Talk with God, I Wish. This is the best song. David Bowie, Station to Station. That's another one. Like, I didn't get into that until a few years ago. I was in that Nevermind store. Do I have like, imagine this whole video. I have like that there. This would just be an audio version tonight if that happened. So hopefully when I edit this, I don't see that. I felt like I had it. Let's have some coffee. Just calm down a little. We're getting into the weeds here. Not weed. Weeds. But yeah, Station to Station, I love that, right? And I do have that one. I just forgot to bring it over. Sorry. I swear to God, next time I'll show it to you. I'll hold a newspaper up with the date. Although that wouldn't prove anything, would it? Thin Lizzy Jailbreak. That's got, the three big songs, Jailbreak, Cowboy Song, and The Boys Are Back in Town. It's got Warriors. This is like all these. That's a hole in my collection that I do not that needs to be filled. And I'm sorry. I'm talking about my record collection. I know we were talking about Kiss and Stars and all that stuff on here. Funkadelic. But I need to get all these Thin Lizzy records. But also I want to wait till I get this diagnosis from the doctor before I start deciding to is that morbid? Like, do I really want to start getting all the ZZ Top albums? If I get like a bad all right, because now we're going to talk about Rastaman Vibration by Bob Marley and the Wailers. And the first song on that is Positive Vibration. So we're not going to talk about negative things like death and staring your own mortality in the eyes every morning when you wake up. You don't want to be there. I'm just kidding. I mean, you don't though. But Rastaman Vibration. I love Bob Marley. I know people like, oh, Bob Marley. It's like commercial, or like, I mean, it's Bob Marley. I mean, someone has to be like the popular artist. And a lot of people say, it was ruined by college kids with, the Bob Marley poster and the legend and whatever. But like, I like, I'm just one of those people of mine. Like, fans don't really define an artist. I think the artist's output does, and of course, yeah, there's annoying fans of a lot of bands, but what are you gonna do? Like all these Bob Marley records, aside from all the stuff that was on Legend, all have Crazy Bald Head, Rat Race, Johnny Was, Roots Rock Reggae. It's a fucking great record. And then in the same world, Peter Tosh puts Legalize It out, which, it's a fucking great record too. Legalize It, What You Gonna Do, Catchy Shooby, Till You're Well Run. That's a perfect record. Legalize It and Equal Rights, the next one. Or it might have been the one before this. But those two records are great records. Um, and I'm starting to get into more reggae. I love Burning Spear. But yeah, I'd like to incorporate more of those into some of these episodes coming up. Steely Dan puts out the Royal Scam, which I think that's maybe one of my favorites. Kid Charlemagne, Caves of Altamira, um, the song The Royal Scam. But I was told not to talk about Steely Dan on this podcast. I'm just kidding. Nobody tells me what to do. Nobody puts. Let's say that. We missed Sad Wings of Destiny by Judas Priest. We're just gonna like run through that one quick. That opens with fucking Victim of Changes and the Ripper. Tyrant Genocide. It's a great record. I'm running out of steam here. The Modern Lovers record comes out. Roadrunner. Pablo Picasso, which was in Repo Man, which we talked about a little while ago. Modern World. Jonathan Richman is he's a jewel. The Modern Lovers stuff is amazing, and then a lot of his solo stuff is great. Why am I doing this again? It's like chasing the soda because I the soda. It's so sweet, even though that's sugar free. Small Change, Tom Waits. That's the first record I hear. Another one I have over there. I was just saying, I gotta talk about Tom Waits. But Step Right Up was the first song I heard by him. I don't know. I like fucking snap my fingers. My fingers are dry. But this is a great record. I like like I said, the this early stuff on was this on Warner Brothers? These, and then I like the stuff on Island a little better when he got like real weird. But this kind of crooner stuff I like a lot, because I love Step Right Up and but my favorite song on here is the last song. I can't wait to get off work and see my baby on Montgomery Avenue. It's a good song. But yeah, Tom Waits. People shit on him. Whatever, I don't care. Let's talk about Rainbow Rising. That's the one I couldn't remember the name of last time. Stargazer. That's all you need to know. Go out and just find the song Stargazer. Dio, Richie Blackmore. You'll thank me. We got another one. We actually have this one. I have the record over there, but I didn't get it. But the UFO, No Heavy Petting. I don't think these guys were really not heavy. I think these guys were yes heavy petting. So I don't know why they would call us an album No Heavy Petting. Um, And this is another one of these ones that's got tons of bonus. It's got a whole bonus live show from 1976. But this has Natural Thing, I'm a Loser. On with the Action is great. Can You Roll Her? But then there's some bonus tracks like All the Strings, Tonight, that's a good one. But yeah, I love UFO, and but this, the album cover. We're winding down here, guys, don't worry. What else do we have? T-Rex, Futuristic Dragon. There's another guy, like, guy got into like a lot of these other records that weren't um fucking the slide. I don't know, the slider and the one where he's in front of the amps, which I think we already talked about in here. I can't remember stuff. Sorry. But this is a good record, Futuristic Dragon. This one I've been listening to it. I love the song Calling All Destroyers on here. The Brothers Johnson, Look Out for Number One, which has Get the Funk Out of My Face, Thunder Thumbs and Lightning. Another one on A&M Records. It's a good funk record. Wings at the Speed of Light. We're not going to talk about Wings on here. I mean, yeah. Nazareth, though. Close Enough for Rock and Roll. It was a great record. I love the song Telegram, which is kind of like a lot of these rock bands like would talk about like what it's like to be on the road and be a rock band, and this one kind of does that. It's a good song, and I think some people were put off by his voice. I don't know, that raspy voice, but I love his voice, and they weren't like they have some like heavy aspects to them, but like I love what's the one? There's one on here where like yeah, Telegram. Like there's a part in the middle of this where it breaks down into and you think that it's like this riff where you think it's kind of like almost be like a breakdown, but then it kind of goes back into like this. I don't know. It's a fun song. But Born Under the Wrong Sign is good. But yeah, I don't know. Good record. Jethro Tull, Too Old to Rock and Roll. We get that back here, that yellow one. And that's a that's a good record. I love Jethro Tull, but we're not really going to talk about them much. The Scorpions' Virgin Killer, which we're just going to breeze by because the original album cover of that is pretty fucking creepy. Pardon my language. Queen, A Day at the Races comes out. See, now we're just naming records that came out in 1976. We're getting into 1977 next. And that, my friends, I get the playlist here, and that's when Cheap Trick shows up. Television, The Clash, more great fucking UFO. We get the jam. So a lot of like the punk and stuff that started happening is really going to start showing up in these episodes, which I'm excited about because I'm a punk rocker. I'm just kidding. Yeah, kinda. So, I don't do like that. What's the thing they would do? I don't know. We're gonna wind this one down. We've been talking for I don't even know how long now, and I don't think there's much else I can say here. 1976 was a great year for music. It was a great year for me moving to California and just sort of being thrown into that world of music and the music business and seeing like just that up front. And thank you for watching this. And I hope you research and buy some of these records. And I hope again that you watch these videos and stay to the end because we have a lot of fun here. And you know, I apologize if sometimes I'm not even talking about a record, but that's not what we're here for. We're here to have fun and just we're just shooting the shit. And like I said, a couple more years from now, on episodes, we're gonna have a return guest on here who's been on here a lot. He's gonna come on and talk about 1978. I know he saw Black Sabbath with Van Halen that year, so I kind of want him to talk about that. And then 1980, we're going to have a dear friend of mine that I met when I lived in Los Angeles. And we both met while living out there. And he was from Oregon. And he worked at a record store there. We met there. And we became good friends. And I used to love talking music with him. But at the time, he was moving to England to get married. And I was moving back to Massachusetts. So we got this friendship happening, which I was really excited about because I didn't have any friends in LA when I first moved there, aside from like my dad and a couple people. But I had more friends up in San Francisco. But he's going to come on in 1980 because him and I used to talk about. He's still in England, and he also appears on another video channel talking about music, which I love watching. Iridium Reviews is the name of the channel. I think that's the name of the channel. But he's often appears on there, and they do a lot of the where they talk about years. They'll talk about artists or albums, and they do sort of the roundabout where like one person picks a song or an album, and I imagine we're going to do something similar to that. Him and I have always talked about 1980 and 1981, that era of music. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, and then I have another guy coming on to do like 97 or something, and he's been on the podcast a couple times as well. But I'm excited for my friend Dominic, who is gonna do 1980 for me because that'll be fun. I haven't. We talk through Messenger all the time, but I haven't seen his face, so it'll be nice to be on the video with him on here. So yeah, we're moving along with these, and I got a few other short ones I'm gonna do in the next week or so. So like the non-year ones, and we'll get to that. And we got a lot of good stuff coming up here. So again, thank you for watching this, and I appreciate you. And if you like what you're seeing here, like and subscribe. You say this at the end of the video. You know, there's people at the beginning, they say, if you like what you're watching, like and subscribe. And they're like, you're 2 minutes into the fucking thing. I used to do that on the audio one. And then I'm like, and telling people to. So what am I talking about? Let's end this here. All right. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time in 1977.